Happy Friday. Oh, do we have a treat this Friday? Um, a little background about me. I graduated from New York University with a degree in educational theater, which is children's theater. And I had the best friend who had a store in a tiny, tiny, I bet it wasn't more than 12 feet wide, little area down in the village. This was NYU after all. And she had a shop that had historic things in it. Trudy Seligman was her name. What a wonderful person. And on one side, when you walked in, there was shelves, floor to ceiling, and things were on the shelves. And there was a counter, and there was magical woman right behind the counter. And I happened to notice above my shoulder something sitting there, and it looked like a skull. Well, of course, I was curious. I was fairly young at the time and had curiosity about those things. And I asked her about the skull, tiny thing. She said it was a monkey's skull. And she left a dramatic pause. And of course, I fell into the trap. What are you doing with a monkey's skull? It had lived most of its afterlife on E.E. Cummings' desk. It was one of his inspirations. And he had bequested it to her. So she kept it in the shop. And I was actually able to see that monkey's skull. Now, this is not a ghost story. And that was a little bit of a spooky intro, but it shows you how things in life connect in the most wondrous ways. What has inspired this story for me is a book, Enormous Smallness, a story of E.E. Cummings by Matthew Burgess with illustrations by Chris Giacomo. And this is the cover of the book. And I've got to show you the back of the book jacket as well. Doesn't it speak volumes with all those images? I see birds. I see a typewriter at the top. So many things. And I love the inside. Look at that. In a wonderful miasmic cloud, there are all these letters floating around. You just wonder, what are they going to become? So let's find out. Word of wisdom. It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. Now, wouldn't you love to meet an elephant with that advertisement on his side? I would. And remember, I pointed out all those letters floating around. Somebody had such fun looking at that title page and picking out different fonts to enlighten each element, from the name of the author to E.E. Cummings to all of it, everything in different fonts. Really quite extraordinary choices. And by the way, he lived in Greenwich Village in a small, very enclosed area for many, many years. And it starts inside an enormous city, in a house on a very small street. There once lived a poet I would like to meet. Look at all of the letters. And can you see it's an enclosed small street, and there just happens to be a rather large bird watching everything. I don't know about you. Look at that bicycle. I can feel the seclusion, not a person around. Everybody's either gone or inside. His name? Well, it's E.E. Cummings. Here is his window at 4 Patchen Place in New York City. Peek inside and you will see the room where E.E. writes his poetry. Look at that. You can even see his typewriter. While sitting at his typewriter, E.E. listens to the birds singing outside his window. May my heart always be open to little birds who are the secret of living. Whatever they sing is better to know. And if men should not hear them, men are old. Now we'll slide to another page. In the room below his studio, a woman rings an elephant with a bell in its belly. Time for tea. She is Marion Morehouse, a fashion model and photographer. The love of E.E.'s life. But how did he become a poet? Oh, and why is he called E. E. You can see her with her elephant bell in the belly. Edward Estlin Cummings was born October 14th, 1894. His parents were Edward and Rebecca Cummings, and they lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts. See that family portrait? Do you get where the E and the E comes from? Estlin grew up in a lively house at 104 Irving Street with his mother and father, 2 grandmas, 2 aunts, 1 rambunctious Uncle George, his younger sister Elizabeth, the handyman Sandy Hardy, an Irish maid named Mary, a dog, a cat, goldfish. Oh, then some rabbits. Look at those rabbits proliferating at the bottom of the page. And do note, he's even given each of the people he's represented a name, so you know who each is, from Mama and Papa on up and down the scale. From his bedroom window, Estlin could see enormous cherry trees. Looking out, he watched the birds hop from branch to branch and tree to tree. And his first poem flew out of his mouth when he was only 3. Oh, my little birdie, oh, with his little toe, toe, toe. Look at the birds. Look at that poem just erupting from little E.E. and look at the poem. I don't know, can you imagine reading this book to a young child or having it read to you? What a wonderful experience. When Estlin said his poems aloud, his mom would write them down. She made a little book and titled it Estlin's Original Poems. When Estlin was 6, he wrote a poem about trees. Sunny in the morning, beautiful and fair, maple trees are happy in the frosty air. Beautiful, his mom explained. What else do you see? Birth right in front of your face. Estlin looked around as if his eyes were on tiptoes, and when his heart jumped, he said another poem. On the chair is sitting Daddy with his book, took it from the bookcase, beaming in his look. Check out Daddy in the chair. Check out Daddy's dog. Check out the pictures and look at that poem. Soon, elephants started marching into Estlin's poems and drawings. Inspired by the circus and the zoo, he pretended his father was an elephant and he rode across the carpet. He's back. Look. Take me to the jungle, you enormous beast, Estlin would holler, and Mr. Cummings would stomp on his knees into an imaginary wilderness. You don't think magic is everywhere in your home. Think again. Look at his helmet. It's a colander, but it does look like a helmet. And it does function like a helmet. Oh, so why on earth shouldn't it be a helmet? I don't know. As Estlin grew, he drew many pictures from the great circus of his imagination. But even more than drawing, elephants, trees, birds. Words say, and how they sound. And look, he loved the way they hum, buzz, and swish. Look at him exploring the capacity of words. Esther also liked to invent new words, like this one. Wash hose at her! And he squished others together, like this. Bean egg. That's bean, ham, egg, just all wrapped together. Bean ham, egg. Say that twice. Say that thrice. Look at that. Whether playing on the swings and monkey bars in the yard, or leading his friends on adventures through the neighborhood, Estlin knew how to make life fun. Sometimes, when the wind was up, he and his sister Elizabeth would climb the staircase to the copper roof of their house. From their perch in the sky, he would fly his homemade into the wind. Sometimes they would sit on the roof at night, gazing at the stars. Look at Estlin and his sister on the roof and flying high in the sky. When school was out in June, Estlin and his family went to Joy Farm in New Hampshire, where they spent long summer days. There, Estlin swam in the stream, milked the cow, Buttercup Daisy, rode Jack the donkey, and wandered with his dog, Rex, through fields and forests. In the enchanted afternoons, Estlin wrote and drew in the small cabin his father made for him. Yes. Oh my, I see the puppy in the stream. And I wish you could look at something right here. You know how when we first opened the cover of the book and we saw all those white letters floating at the bottom and then kind of rising? Well, look, I see some letters in the trees. It's like the place where his information and observations are given clothes to wear. His ideas are put together with those letters that he finds everywhere. Back home on Irving Street, in one particularly enormous tree, Estlin and his father built a small house in the branches. They even installed a stove to keep him cozy on winter days. There, snug and warm, Estlin and his friends would pop popcorn, toast toast, and stir hot cocoa on the little stove. Estlin also liked being there alone, drawing pictures, writing poems. He would peer out at the world above and the world below. Look at Estlin in his tree house that his father built. When Estlin was 11, his favorite teacher, Miss Maria Baldwin, noticed his wonderful way with words and encouraged him. From her, Estlin learned that anything is possible as long as you are true to yourself and never give up, even when the world says. Notice something about teacher of Estlin. I'm going to exit the book for just a second, and I want to read you something. This is from a biography in the back of the book if you want to find out different facts about E.E. Cummings. In 1904, Estlin starts at the Agassiz Grammar School, where Miss Maria Baldwin is principal. Baldwin, whose Cummings later remembered as having a delicious voice, charming manners, and a deep understanding of children, was the first female African-American principal in New England. For 8th grade, 1905 to 06, Estlin will also have her as his teacher. To remind you, there is Miss Baldwin. For Estlin's 15th birthday, his Uncle George gave him The Rhymester, a guide to writing poems with samples of styles like sonnets and triolets. It soon became one of Estlin's prized possessions, and he learned to follow the rules of rhythm and rhyme, writing poem to poem. One day, though sometimes only on weekends and holidays, until he was 20. A month before his 17th birthday, Estlin began his freshman year at Harvard College, just a few blocks away from his home on Irving Street. Estlin quickly made many new friends, found professors who inspired him. He also began publishing his poems in the Harvard magazine. In his senior year, Estlin moved from home into his own dorm room in the center of the campus. He covered his walls with crazy cat comic strips and made a parade of elephants that marched across his mantelpiece. The elements of the words are in the pictures. One day, Estlin read these words by his favorite poet, John Keats. I am certain of nothing but the holiness of the heart's affections and the truth of the imagination. Suddenly, deep within him, a mysterious bird began to sing. Estlin knew it would take courage to follow his heart, but he was determined to live the life he imagined. At graduation, Estlin electrified his audience with a speech titled The New Art. He talked about Gertrude Stein, Paul Cézanne, Igor Stravinsky, artists who were challenging the way we think and see. In all of the arts, people were in pursuit of the new, and Estlin wanted to make his own. Look at that. And do notice all those type-faced letters spilling out of his mouth, forming themselves into ideas. After graduation, Estlin returned to his old home on Irving Street. There in his attic room, he experimented with his poetry. But adventures awaited him. So when he'd saved enough money, Estlin headed to New York City. Filled with artists and poets, Greenwich Village was the place to be. He loved the city immediately. He also breathed as though for the first time. Estlin wandered the streets with friends for hours on end. Sometimes they'd stopped at Curry's for shish kebab or pop into bookshops for second-hand paperbacks. He loved the cities. Irresistibly stupendous. Look at that. Look at that. But shortly after Estlin arrived in New York City, everything changed when the United States entered World War I. It was April 6, 1917. Very next day, Estlin volunteered to drive an ambulance in France. 3 weeks later, he boarded a ship to sail across the Atlantic. Estlin's mother traveled to New York to send him off with a kiss, and his father sent a telegram to show that he would be missed. Telegram. As I said in advance, I envy your chance of breaking a lance for the freedom in France by driving and mending an ambulance. Best love and luck a soldier ever had. From Betsy, Mother, Jane, Nana, and While awaiting his assignment with the ambulance corps, Estlin explored Paris with his journal in hand. Bowled over by the museums, the ballet, and the colorful crowded streets, Estlin drank in every detail. After only a few weeks, Estlin had to report for duty in the countryside, but he would return to Paris many times. While working for the ambulance corps, Estlin was mistaken for a spy and sent to prison. He was released a few months later. When the war was over, Estlin joined his family at Joy Farm, where he wrote a book about his experiences in the war, called The Enormous Room by E.E. Cummings. Book was published and praised. Estlin was becoming E.E. A year later, his first book of poems was published, Tulips and Chimneys. Using a style all his own, E.E. put lowercase letters where capitals normally would go, and his playful punctuation grabbed readers' attention. His poems were alive with experimentation and surprise, and because of his love for lowercase letters, his name began to appear with little e's and a little c. He liked to break the rules of rhythm and rhyme and to make words dance across the page in surprising ways. He wanted his readers' eyes to be on tiptoes too, seeing and reading poetry in a way that was new. Some people criticized him for painting with words. Others said his poems were too strange, too small. Some said they were not good at all. The sky was candy, illuminated. Sky, pink sky, lemons, cool greens, chocolates, under a locomotive of things. But no matter what the world was giving or taking, E.E. went right on dreaming and making. For inside he knew his poems were new and true. Love is a place. Love is a place. And through this place of love, move with brightness of peace all places. Yes is a world. And in this world of yes, live skillfully all worlds. His poems were his way of saying yes. Yes to the heart and the roundness of the moon, to birds, elephants, trees, and everything. Yes, to spring too, which always brought him back to childhood, when the first sign of his favorite season was the whistling arrival of the balloon. And that is the story of E.E. Cummings. But I want to close with one poem that is actually in the book as well. And it has a word that I've used an infinite number of times, and I dearly love it. And that word combination is marvelous. Can you hear the squish of that word? This is the poem in which that word appears for the first time. In just spring, when the world is mud luscious, the little lame balloon man whistles far, and we and Eddie and Bill come running from marbles and piracies, and it's spring. The world is so wonderful. The queer old balloon man whistles far, and we and Betty and Isabel come dancing from hopscotch and jump rope. Spring, and the goat-footed balloon man whistles. We just takes a leap to infinity. And that is a world that you can access at Story and Song through the wonderful book of enormous smallness, A Story of E.E. Cummings by Matthew Burgess, illustrations by Chris. And now, until next Friday, I'll have another treat for you. Something different. Till then.